Welcome, everyone. You're tuning into Engaging Walk. My name is Drake.
My name is Ruby.
We believe in the power of walking together and talking together.
It's a simple act to stay connected, and movement is key.
Yeah, so this week we're going to be discussing Credo. So we went to a marriage retreat together that was fully paid for and sponsored by the Navy. I am currently serving on active duty. Ruby found it. She found the opportunity for us to do this, and it was 100% free. They gave us a hotel room, and it was a great experience. We have some video captured, and we're going to be showing that to you and throughout this special.
Yeah, and so before we go into like everything, we would love to talk about what Credo and what do they do and who do we serve. So Credo is a group, an organization run by the government, and they serve military families. And what they do is just give back to the sailors or all the people that in armed force, just to be grateful for what they have done for the country. So, like Drake said, they create a weekend marriage enrichment weekend, where you get to know more about your spouse and each other and how to maneuver through life together, and on top of that military life together. And it's free. It's pretty much paid for: food, hotel, and all activities.
Yeah, it was really definitely fun. How did you find this? I think we've talked a lot about being intentional in the previous week, and one of the things that Ruby is great at is being intentional with our dates, being intentional with our date nights and our time together. And one of the things that she's able to do really well is like make our money go a lot further. So it's a great thing. It's a great thing. It's I talked to a lot of people, and they're like, man, I wish my wife was like that, or I wish I had somebody like that in my life who is always pushing, like, hey, let's make our money go further. Let's do this. Let's save some money here. And this was really fun, and it was a great way for us to unwind, spend some time at the beach, spend some time together, and not be at home. Not be at home for like 3 days. And so yeah, how did you find it?
So because I just married to a service member, and I'm a learner, so I love to learn and prepare myself, especially new environment. So I signed myself up in Navy Spouse 101. That's the classes where you get to know the Navy, all the terms, what I said, like Credo, what does it stand for, and all the terms. And through that class, I get to know that there's tons of helps and support of a community during the place called Fleet and Family.
Fleet and Family.
I'm still learning all the terms. And I found Credo there because during the class they said like, hey, by the way, if you are looking for time to for your marriage, and it's free, and it's right here in Coronado at the lodge, Navy Lodge. So just sign it up, and then so that's what we did. So I think being intentional, you look for resources around you and just utilize it,
Yeah, I think this whole trip that we took together, it's like sort of like a staycation almost, because it's local for us.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like taking a pause and thinking about our relationship, and I think that might be helpful for every relationship. I think no matter what you're doing, if you're focused on it and you're doing it every day, like a relationship, a marriage, especially a marriage where you live together, you can sort of lose the forest for the trees, and I think taking a pause and thinking about how we do things, thinking about how we can improve things, and just in general, even if you're not having a crisis, is very helpful. And that was pretty much like what they talked about.
Yeah.
So basically, a lot of strategies, a lot of different things. To be honest, we had already gone over a lot of these things, or a lot of these strategies. We've previously mentioned Danny Silk's courses that are really
very
helpful. Love Academy, Kylo, all that, but this was also like just a refresher kind of course on that, and then doing it in person with other couples was really fun.
Yeah, and then they have 3 days, so basically you get to know, the couples, couples in, military families, and I find it very helpful because, for me as a civilian, going to that world, I don't know, because so many things. Not just the terms, but also like the mindset and the lifestyle that I don't have. And I'm a planner, so one of the, I don't say it's culture, shocked, but it's like lifestyle shocked. Like, I'm a planner and I have plans. If you come to our house, you will see plans everywhere on the wall.
That's for sure.
And, to-do list. And so for him, it's like, I'm asking him, so what I'm going to do? Like, but he said, like, oh, I don't know. Like, what do you want? You don't know. And so it just, their life is, you need to have a lot of grace and flexibility. That's what we need. That's what I need to learn. And so here, being there for 3 days, we not just learn more about each other, we learn more about communications, how you deal with that. And later on, we will share more about our, takeaway. But then also I get to know the community around me, where they serve in San Diego, they serve in California, and they have different, skill sets that they have gone through. So
absolutely, a lot of people that have spent almost years apart.
Yeah. And they
being on deployment, being this, doing that, having to live separately. What they call in the military, mill to mill. Like both couples, they're both serving, so their schedules can be really crazy.
Yeah.
Really crazy.
Yeah. So like they have two different missions at two different places, and they still have a family to run. You know? So it's crazy. But anyway, so we just go. I want to go. If you hear background noise, that's just our baby in the back.
Yeah, that's Boba.
She just like,
I want to do what you guys are doing right now. But it's her sleep time. We're doing this late at night, but we're not really late. But we're doing this later than we should be, and she's.
She's like, let me join you guys.
Let me out.
She's cute. We'll introduce her the next.
Had a little bit of an intervention with her dog. Just had to make sure that she was doing well. Normally she's in the crate by now, like sleeping. But since we're up doing this, she's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?"
Yeah.
But so we just want to also talk a little bit about some of the highlights or the takeaways that we had from this event. And one of the things that I wouldn't say learned, but one of the things that was definitely highlighted to us, and one of the things that was like a focus, is this idea about like attacking the problem and not the person.
Yeah, it's very true, because most of the time, like when it's got heated conversation, we kind of like go after the person, but actually as a team, because that's what I learned from Credo. That's what I learned from the Kylo. Like, it's the connection point. Like the reason we bring it up, the reason that we talk about this, even though it's not nice or it's hard, but is my goal is to connect with you. My goal is to solve this problem together. Instead of I accusing you.
Yeah, it can be sometimes seen as like, you're doing this, or you're making me feel this way.
Yeah.
And in the end, you're responsible for how you feel. And there could be a situation that is problematic, or can be like impeding connection to the highest point. Like, hey, I come home from work, and the moment I come home from work, I immediately step on, trash, and like this is around the place, just as an example. And the problem isn't really necessarily you. The problem is that, maybe your expectations aren't met of like how you would like things to be when you get home. And then you can talk about that and sort that out, as opposed to blaming the other person or saying that they're making you feel a certain way. You know, because it's part of it is your expectation, and then part of it is like what's happening in reality. And so when those two things don't match, then there's room for conflict.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there's this exercise that I did with my mentor when I was young. I was still single, and she asked me to write down, and don't even think about it. Like, just write down your dream, you know, kind of husband, and just write down. And I wrote down all my expectation, and it was really long. It's super long, and but you know, like. And Gina, like, she told me to bring it back to her the next week, because we do it week by week. And even before I, you know, met her for the next week, and after I writing down the list, I feel like it's impossible to have someone like that. And it's, for me, even like I found someone like that on the list, for me at that point it's boring, because I know everything on the list. There's no art of getting to know the person. And also, it's like, for me, that at that point it looked like a robot to me, you know, like it just no art of getting to know one another. So like at that point, you know, like sometimes expectation is not wrong, but it needs to be communicated, and you know, to evaluate, is it necessary, you know, again going back to connections, like, if I expecting him do all kinds of things that I want, is it fair for him? Because, you know, he coming, you know, what he wants to do. So I think, like you said, like, it's not tackle the person, but the problem, and literally just like, is it worth it for, you know, your marriage, you know, your relationship.
Yeah, and that also kind of like feeds into another thing that they talked about, which was the idea of there being permanent and temporary problems. You know, an idea or an example could be like, a temporary problem could be, you know, that we have a schedule conflict. Ruby's working nights and I'm working days, and we hardly see each other.
Which is not the case.
Yeah, not the case, but just as an example of a temporary problem.
Yeah.
Our schedules aren't always going to look like that, but we have to work around those temporary problems, and we have to make solutions for them. You know, so, and if that was the case, if we had conflicting work schedules, then we'd have to find time in order to connect and in order to do life together. You know, it can't be the case that I'm sleeping, she's working, and then during the weekends we're just catching up. You know, that it's just an example, but an example of a temporary problem. And a permanent problem could be something along the lines of, like, we have different viewpoints, different values, and those things are always going to, or they're always going to be different viewpoints that we maintain, and it's not necessarily fair for us to expect our partner to change. And we sort of have to live with that difference and accept, or at least come to some sort of compromise. A good example that they used at Credo was drinking. You know, that there was a case where a guy was like, hey, you know what, I like to drink with my friends. And his wife was like, I don't want you to drink at all, you're going cold turkey. And he's like, no, I can't do that. So they came to a compromise where he would drink with his friends once a month, or whatever that they agreed upon. And you have to sort of think about, like, what those differences are in your relationship, and how can you mitigate the conflict that you're going to share with amongst those differences.
And some of the things that we also see that I learned is that there's a lot of expectations and communications should have done